In the late 19th century, the 8-hour day was a hot topic and becoming a political hot potato. Employers were saying the 8-hour day would cut down production, while advocates were saying it would reduce the number of injuries at work, as most accidents happened after 8 hours. In 1884, the Federation of Organized Labor and Trades Union called for employees to convince their employers to adopt the 8-hour system. On May 1, 1886, those not yet on the 8-hour system were to cease work until their employers met the demand. On May 1, 1886, some employers had met the demand, but most were refusing. This led to demonstrations all across the country. Most peaceful, but there would be serious trouble at Chicago's Haymarket Square and Milwaukee's rolling mills in Bayview. On May 2nd, in Milwaukee, the Central Labor Union held a parade. They march with banners proclaiming slogans such as, "The workmen do not beg, they demand," "We do not work for King Mammon," and 8 hours is our battle cry. The Milwaukee Journal bills it as the biggest event in city history. Wisconsin Governor Jeremiah Rusk is concerned about violence as strikes for the 8-hour days are happening in the city. On April 29th, he had already put the state militia on standby. The parade is watched by some 25,000 people, and afterwards there is a picnic at the Milwaukee Gardens with speakers denouncing the 10-hour workday and voicing concerns over employers taking advantage of employees. Soon, they worked the crowd into a frenzy. Before long, everyone was chanting 8 hours. Some members of the Knights of Labor were in attendance. Afterwards, they go back to their headquarters at St. Stanislaus Church and speak to some of their members. Soon afterwards, 800 Knights of Labor start marching through the streets of Milwaukee, chanting 8 hours, everyone must strike. Polish workers and tradesmen stop their work and join the march. The first factory they came to was CM STP Car Company, who built railroad cars. After gaining recruits there, they marched to Edward P. Allis Reliance Steelworks. There, the marchers were met by foremen and supervisors, who try to keep the marchers away with high-pressure water hoses. But when the workers inside hear the chanting, they stop working and join the march. The marchers continued and got more recruits as they went along. Businesses were closing at an alarming rate due to labor shortages. The owners of CM and STP Car Company put a special train at Governor Jeremiah Rusk's disposal. He rushes to Milwaukee and sets up his office in the Plankinton Hotel, where employers are asking Governor Rusk to call out the militia. But Rusk at this point sees no reason and does not want to overstep the city. The workers continue their strike and get more recruits as the Milwaukee police trail the crowd, hoping there would be no violence. Governor Rusk is asked again by employers to call out the militia, and again he says no. On May 3rd, the strikers have shut down every factory in Milwaukee except one, the North Chicago Railroad's Rolling Mills Steel Foundry in Bayview. The chant now goes out, 8 hours, everyone must strike, on to the mills. By this time, the marchers are now numbering about 1,500. It consists mainly of Polish, some Germans, and some Native Americans. Meanwhile, the number of strikers in the city are about 12,000. Labor leaders convince Edward P. Allis to offer its workers the 8-hour day with a pay increase. However, the workers are too caught up in the moment and refuse to come back unless everyone gets an 8-hour day. Labor leaders try to talk the crowd into dispersing, speaking their native language, but the workers pay no heed, and the English-speaking reporters do not understand them, reporting that they were inciting the crowd. The Milwaukee police follow the crowd into the Bayview neighborhood late in the afternoon and call Governor Rusk to inform him they did not have adequate force if violence should occur. Rusk now calls out the militia, including the Kosciuszko militia, made up mainly by Polish businessmen who do business in the Polish section of the city. The strikers begin negotiating with the supervisors at the rolling mills for permission to enter the plant and talk to the workers. The plant manager refuses, and the crowd will not let him back inside until he accepts. The Lincoln Guard arrive on the scene by special train and immediately help him get back in. Then they form a line between the strikers, who are now throwing rocks at the mills. Their orders are to protect the property at all costs. Meanwhile, inside the mills, workers are arguing with each other over the 8-hour workday. By nightfall, there are over 250 National Guardsmen at the mills, but the closest unit, the Kosciuszko Guard, has not arrived. Early in the morning on May 4th, the Kosciuszko Guard arrives on foot to jeers and name-calling as strikers are calling them traitors to their fellow countrymen, while others are saying, "Join us or go home." The strikers then form a wave of people between the Kosciuszko Guard and the mills to stop them from joining the Lincoln Guard. There was not one person in the Kosciuszko Guard who did not recognize someone striking. Some strikers are throwing rocks at the Kosciuszko Guard, while several members in the rear of the Guard get nervous and fire in the air over the heads of the strikers and accidentally hit the mills. After this incident, the strikers leave the Guard alone and they proceed into the mills, joining the other units called. The strikers now ask the supervisors to wire their headquarters in Chicago to start negotiations on an 8-hour day. They agree, but the answer from Chicago is fast and short: no. At this point, no one in the crowd knows about the ugly events unfolding at Haymarket Square, where a bomb kills 4 and wounds many more. Governor Rusk is under considerable pressure from employers to stop the strike. Employers are saying that they will turn entire society upside down and use the bombing in Haymarket Square as their proof that a revolution is underway. Rusk calls the mills and tells Captain Tremere of the Lincoln Guard, if the strikers try to enter the mill, shoot to kill. Captain Tremere then orders his men to pick out a man, concentrate, and kill him when the order is given. The strikers spend the night in open fields nearby, while the militia camps at the mills with sentries posted. During the night, the sentries are shooting at anything that moves, and a Navy tug brings provisions for the Guard. On May 5th, around 9 in the morning, the strikers gather again, chanting 8 hours. A reporter who slept with them reported that it was odd that this was a group with no real leadership, but everyone was united in one single purpose. The crowd now approached the mill and faced the militia, who were ready to fire. Before Tremere knew the crowd's real intentions, he orders halt, but the strikers, who are about 200 yards away, do not hear him. Then he orders fire, and several people lay dead as others are injured. The crowd is in chaos as people are running from the scene while others are looking for cover. The Milwaukee Journal reports that 6 are dead and at least 8 more are expected to die within 24 hours. Meanwhile, some strikers are calling for revenge on the militia, but to no avail. For several days afterward, a few strikers were still marching throughout the city, but no one would join them. The dead included a 13-year-old boy who tagged along with the crowd, wondering what was going on, and a retired worker who lived in Bayview. He was struck down by a stray bullet as he was getting water and was not part of the strike. In the aftermath, while cleaning up, the guardsmen find 2 more bodies along the railroad tracks, apparently Polish immigrants who were on strike. They remain unidentified to this day. On May 9th, the Milwaukee Journal reports that Edward Pialis was firing its Polish workers and replacing them with other nationalities because the Polish people were too radical. Other companies follow suit for the same reason, and for a time no Pole could find work in Milwaukee. Meanwhile, the Polish section boycotts the businesses of the Kosciuszko Guard members. The National Guard finally pull out on May 13th. An inquiry of the events praises the Guard's actions, calling it an unpleasant duty, a humane gesture for firing only 1 volley, and indicts at least 20 Poles for leading an unlawful assembly. They are sentenced to hard labor ranging from 6 to 9 months. I'm Stephen Pix.